That's cool. Oh, good morning. Did y'all have a good Thanksgiving? Yeah? And if you didn't, at least you made it through and you're here, right? Oh, that's good. That's good. So, recently, I was being kind of nosy, and I was overhearing some coworkers having this conversation. And they were having this conversation about life, and they were saying that life is like a game. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. And all of a sudden it like started triggering me to think, like, if life was a game, what game would it be? So what do you guys think? Unlike Reverend Guy, I don't work alone. You can go ahead and shout it out. If life was a game, what game would it be?
The game of life.
The game of life? Trouble?
Twister.
Twister. Oh, that would be fun. Yeah. Jenga. That would keep me nervous all the time. So I was thinking about our philosophy and what we believe here, and I was thinking about if life was a game, to me, it would definitely have to be poker. Okay? Because in poker, 2 queens or 2 kings can win a hand, right? You can win with a straight, you can win with a full house, you can go all in, or you can decide to fold and to pick up some new cards, right? Okay, so if life is like a game of poker, would we rather play by the law of averages, where sometimes we win and sometimes we lose, and we know the dealer's always got the upper hand, right? Yeah. Or would we rather play this game of life, this hand of poker, with a stacked deck? And what that means for those of us who don't know what a stacked deck is, it's like putting 8 aces in your standard deck instead of 4, so that you ensure your chances of success. I want to play with a stacked deck. What about you? Sure. Yeah. So that's why our talk title this morning is Oh Crap. Oh crap. Like that. I know you've said that before, haven't you? As you're walking along, maybe I'm the only one walking along this little experience of mine of life, and then stumbled upon an experience that I've probably had 10 million too many times, and said, oh crap. Really? This again? Or some random experiences come into our lives and we say, really? What am I supposed to learn from this? Right? And we'll say, oh, crap. Oh, man. But I think we know that crap really isn't crap, although it can feel like it sometimes. Crap really means, what it stands for is that consciousness reveals all possibilities. Consciousness reveals all possibilities. And so, just to clarify a little bit, with this word consciousness, we kind of throw that word around a lot. And so it means a couple different things. On one hand, it can mean to be alert and aware, right? We're conscious of ourselves, we're alive. But on the other hand, we use it, especially in philosophy, we use it to mean like the all. We use it to mean God or the divine or that endless substance and source that is in and through and as us, right? So when I talk about crap, I'm talking about a synonym for God, right? That God reveals all possibilities to us until the point at which we begin to take control of our lives, to take the reins of our own spiritual development and become the cause in our life. See, when we live life by the law of averages, we're living in the effect of life. We're letting our society and our government and our families and blah, 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 we're letting that affect us. But we don't want to do that. That's not the life that we as spirit incarnate was born to experience. We were born to experience a full, freedom-filled life. And so we get to move from being this effective life to being the cause of our own life, a truly empowered feeling, right? I wanted to share a couple of examples with you of people who I feel like have moved from playing with like a standard deck to really stacking the deck for themselves. And they lived many years of their lives just kind of floating around, not really knowing where their purpose was until something triggered inside them and they became the cause of their life. And the first person, you might be able to notice what I've been looking into lately, being engaged. The first person is Vera Wang. Vera Wang is a world-renowned wedding gown designer. Well, she designs all sorts of clothes, but beautiful, beautiful wedding gowns. And I found this out about Vera Wang. She spent, number one, she didn't design her first wedding gown until she was 40, okay? And that was her own wedding gown. Because she was a figure skater and then an editor, and she was trying to figure out what her place was, what she was supposed to be doing. But she was just letting all of life impose itself on her, and she was just this effect. So she gets engaged, and she goes around searching for a wedding gown, but she can't find the right one. So she begins to design her own, and all of a sudden her whole life, her whole consciousness just shifts, and she's empowered, and she realizes that this is the cause of her life. This is the purpose in her life. And now we can see the tremendous success that she has been since then. Another person who kind of went from effect to cause is Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson spent most of his life anxious, depressed, a heroin addict, a cocaine addict, and it wasn't until he got into recovery and realized that his life he was acting in such a way because of a spiritual deficiency within him. And once he filled that spiritual deficiency with love and life and truth, he started Pulp Fiction at the age of 46 with John Travolta. He found what his cause was in life. He found himself as cause in his life. And so how do we, in our own way, in our own life, move from being like this effect of life, just living in this gray area, to really becoming the cause of our experiences and our adventures in life? I have, there's a very profound philosopher from the 19th century, and he has some ideas about this that I think are really supportive. And, but a little backstory about him, he kind of had a similar situation to Vera and Samuel. He was this British judge living in India for most of his life, working in the judicial system, and he was taking in the philosophical and mystical ideas that were around India at that time, the Hindu philosophies. And his name was Thomas Troward. And Thomas Troward went on to becoming one of the most influential philosophers to Dr. Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of our philosophies. So many of the ideas that Thomas Troward realized or recognized or was able to articulate, many of us practice. And one of the coolest things that he was able to articulate beautifully was this idea of evolution. And so I think this is how we go from being this cause in this effect of life to being the cause in our life. And so what he says is, he says that we start our evolutionary process, right, as these single-celled organisms, and we're living by the law of averages. So on average, so many are going to die and so many are going to survive. It's kind of like survival of the fittest. This is called the law of averages, right? It's this generic, mechanical experience of life. But as time goes on, we evolve genetically and biologically into humans, and we become self-conscious. Wow, I mean, we are aware that we are alive. Not all creatures of this earth can say that, right? We get to choose. And so here's where this quantum leap of evolution takes place. It's called the personal factor. And so Troward says that evolution is the process of matter coming to know itself as spirit. It's the process of our little atomic beings coming to know ourselves as spirit. This is the evolutionary process. This is the process of moving from being an effect of life to being the cause of our life. One of my favorite bands right now, they're called Medicine for the People. And there's this line at the end of one of their songs that says, it reminds me of Troward kind of, because he says, you know, in the end, my body is spirit anyway. In the end, my body is spirit anyway. And so because we become self-aware, because we have what is called the personal factor, and we get to personalize our lives instead of living in crap, instead of living from consciousness just revealing any and all possibilities possible, we get to personalize it. We get to utilize it. We get to go within ourselves and feel what stirs us. And then we get to look in the outer world and say, where can I be that? How can I do that? How is this showing up for me? But one very important aspect we must be clear on. And so I want to ask you a question. How many of you here believe that you are creative? Okay. Now I'm going to tell you something a little bit silly about myself. When I first started studying philosophy, and especially with my brilliant spiritual teachers, they used to tell me that I was creative, that I was a creative being, that we're all creative. And I used to imagine some artsy, moody person creating paintings and telling, reciting poetry. I was like, what do you mean, we're all creative? Like, I'm not creative like that. And so it was confusing to me. I didn't get it. I didn't get it until they invited me to reflect on my life and see how my beliefs and my ideas and the experiences that I had came together to create my perception of reality. So my beliefs and my ideas, coupled with my experiences together, created my perception. And that was so freeing to realize that indeed we are all creative. We are all creating our own reality. At every moment, we are at opportunity to fold, to go all in. It's our choice. By right of consciousness, we are here to inherit the kingdom on earth within us. We are expressions of a divine something. I know that we can all feel that inside of ourselves. We are expressions of a divine something, and that something so desires to understand and feel and revel in its goodness by means of us. Now, I know that this can be hard sometimes when you're going through struggles, when you are having a heck of a life, when things just don't feel like they're going well, or you can't possibly understand how any good is going to come out of this or that or crap, right? But what I know for absolute certain is that every one of us was born good. I don't care, I don't know if you believe that or not, but every one of us was, in fact, born good. All of us. And every one of us deserves to have our lives reflect that good. That is our divine inheritance. That is why we are alive. That is why this intelligence created us. And so for those of us who find sacred meaning and metaphor in biblical scriptures, I want to share with you something from Ephesians. It says, "In him we have obtained an inheritance, having been predestined according to the purpose of him, who works all things according to the counsel of its will. What this means is that being incarnations of divine, being matter experiencing and getting to know itself as spirit, we are preordained to feel, to know, to embody, and to experience all of the attributes of the divine. But we get to live in cause. We get to live in taking steps towards that, or we get to live in effect, being the effect of everybody else's stuff. It's up to us. For those who love poetry, who it speaks to their souls like it does mine, another one of the great New Thought philosophers, Ralph Waldo Trine, he wrote this beautiful poem. I invite you to just take this in. It's called The Mystical Life of Ours, where he says, "Back of my parents and grandparents, there is a great eternal will. That too is thine inheritance, strong, beautiful, divine, sure lever for success for the one who tries. Earth has no claim the soul cannot contest. Know thyself, part of the eternal source. Naught can stand before thy spirit's force. The soul divine inheritance is best." Listen to that again. "Know thyself, part of the eternal source. Naught can stand before thy spirit's force. The soul's divine inheritance is best." It is known by saints and sages, by philosophers and free thinkers alike, that there are spiritual laws, spiritual principles as clear and precise as the law of aerodynamics, as the law of physics, as a law of gravity. And it is our free will, our choice to embody those, to recognize those, to become a parent of them. They're at our fingertips, they're within us. It's up to us to become cause and embody them when we feel our hearts stirring. Like for Vera Wang, it was creativity. This law of creativity and creating new and beautiful things was her soul's purpose. And for Samuel L. Jackson, it was getting to live in new worlds, getting to experience new characters. This brought them to life. What's bringing us to life? Are we allowing ourselves to be brought to life? In the Bhagavad Gita, which is a sacred Hindu scriptures, Krishna and Arjuna are on the battlefield of life. And Krishna urges Arjuna to hear him when he says that one must attain single-mindedness of purpose. For those who lack resolution, the decisions of life are many-branched and endless. For those who lack resolution, the decisions of life are many-branched and endless. I think many-branched and endless is probably a nicer way of saying crap, right? Like consciousness revealing all possibilities. Many-branched and endless. Still, for the mind that is disunited, Krishna says, life is full of suffering. Rather, the wise must unify their consciousness. The wise must unify their consciousness. Single-mindedness of focus. I want to share with you one of the most inspiring and courageous stories of moving from being an effective life to a cause, moving into that single-mindedness of focus. And it was about this girl who was this little, humble little Quaker girl who lived in the 19th century. And being a Quaker, her family celebrated and honored equality. within the home. They believed that men and women and everyone were treated equal, that they were equal. So when she grew up and she became a teacher, because that was one of the only things she could do, she started to look around the world and she started to realize that everything that she was taught at home wasn't exactly showing up in her world. That the equality that her mother and father were showing to each other, it just wasn't real at that time. And so what she found out was that she was in the wrong field. She was not fulfilled. She was living her life by effect. And so one day she decided, she had single-mindedness of purpose, and she decided to be the cause of her life. And that woman is Susan B. Anthony. And I want to tell you just a little bit about her. Once she decided that she was going to stand up and speak up for women's rights, once she made that one decision, everything else changed. She utilized spiritual laws and spiritual principles, and she brought it all together, because what she knew was that if she was going to make a change, she needed to be an excellent speaker so that the men would actually listen to her, right? So she learned, and this is pretty incredible for back in the 19th century, she learned that if she was going to be an incredible speaker, she needed to dress well. She needed to sleep 8 hours a night, and so she did. She needed to eat clean, healthy food, and so she did. She needed to exercise every day, and so she did. She needed to practice relentlessly and study nonstop. And she did all for one purpose. That became her cause. That became her life's purpose. And now we can see, we can live in and dwell in all the good that her cause did for us. And so this little sickly Quaker girl became a revolutionary. And that's the point here. That's what I want to share with you all, is that any of us don't need to become revolutionaries, but any of us can move from the cause, the effects of our lives, living by others' ideas and opinions, living by whatever the world is imposing on us, and we can all decide to fold and pick up new cards. We can all go all in, but we have to personalize it. We have to make it our own, and we have to remember that there is a divine inheritance at hand, and it is ours for the taking. And so in closing, I wanted us all to be able to recite an affirmation together that I put in our program. It's actually under thought. And so when you're all ready. Okay. It's under thought. I can just read it if you'd like.
Oh, on the note.
Yeah, on the notes. Okay. Today, I enter into my divine inheritance, free from the belief that external conditions are imposed upon me. Let's say it one more time with as much power as we want to give it. Today, I enter into my divine inheritance, free from the belief that the external conditions are imposed upon me. Yes, amen. So it is. Thank you all. Oh.